How's it going, everybody? Welcome to KC Happy Hour, episode number 19, here on Tuesday night, November 23rd. As everybody begins to tune in, we always want to introduce our guest. Unfortunately, one of our normal cast members, Brandon Jarsicrack, a little bit under the weather, so he won't be joining us tonight. But we've got the champion that was four, is now five-time Ryan Norberg in the studio with us to talk, do a little more SuperNats prep. Joining us as well from our regular cast is Braden Eves. He's here for the night as long as we can keep him. And we've got a ton of really cool special guests here. Jason Berry from Norcal Karters is here. Greg Bell, live from the shop at Leading Edge Motorsports, getting ready for SuperNats as well, is here, taking a little break out of his day because he's got more work to do right after the show ends. And on top of all that, we got Eric Gunderson as well, who is from Point Karting, is also going to be with us at SuperNats. He's going to be in a very busy format as well, and as a representative of Colorado, because this show we really wanted to talk to you guys about the West Coast and a lot of the regions we don't normally get to talk about. Obviously, SuperNats is a big event for everybody across the board, and we're going to talk a little bit about SuperNats because there have been, of course, a few news updates that have come out on social media, and just recap those, talk about what we do know going into the event, because we're now a week out when we come back to you guys with all of our social media coverage that we're going to be doing at the event. Next week, we'll be already at the track. So this is our final kind of precursor to SuperNats that we're going to get to chat on. But we also, again, want to talk about club and regional racing because the sport goes far and way beyond the massive weekends in Vegas and the massive weekends that we have on the national level. And so these guys are going to help us talk about regions that I myself don't normally get to a whole lot, and the rest of us on the show don't get to a whole lot. So we want to talk about stuff looking into 2022, because especially if you go north of the first line of states in the U.S., clubs have already started to hit the end of their regular season, shut down for this year, and look towards the next year. Before we get into all the club stuff and touching on everything from Colorado to California and the Southwest, we did have a lot of news come out over this past week. First and foremost, SCUSA announced that they were going to be going back to the same layout that they ran in the last couple of years. They refined it all the way to 2019 into a layout that seemed to race pretty good. It's definitely a shorter layout of the SuperNats compared to years past. It's far from the longest. It's far from the most technical, but the racing on track was honestly really, really good. So we're going to have everybody break that down in a moment. They also came out with the Paddock for the weekend, which I think they packed pretty well, and it seems like they've got a lot of excess space where no one's really a million miles away. Obviously, they're in a much better spot than the Rock Cup guys were looking to Rock Vegas, where guys were put down a single file aisle and way deep out of there. And there was also some news that kind of was late breaking over the weekend that I wanted to briefly touch on before we come back into the SuperNats updates. And that was for four-cycle racing. First, this happened. So this is courtesy of the Kart Lounge, which is Keith Champine's news group that covers a lot of the major four-stroke events, both at CKNA and then down to the regional, smaller, kind of more Southeast-based series like the Maxxis Sprint Series and some of the other series that kind of run in this like Georgia, Carolinas, Florida area. And this was from the Maxxis Grand Nationals they had down in Jacksonville, which again kind of finishes off their series. They had a couple hole-in-the-wall events up in the Northeast too. I don't want to make it just the Southeast, but that's really where the heart of all these racers and where these races are. And it was saying that over the last few years that had kind of taken a lot of the remnants of the WK Gold Cup series and a lot of the racers who had run in that championship, which again was a Southeastern mainly based series running four-stroke exclusive engines, migrated over here to Maxxis, and Maxxis said at that event that they're going to be shutting that series back down. It's kind of been about the same size as where it's been the last 2 or 3 years with it, 60 to 100 entries anywhere they go at the bigger set events, some of them a little bit smaller. But then what was interesting was then on, I think this was Monday at 11:30 a.m., this was from Steve Lofton, who was an avid four-stroke racer and a big supporter in there, posted in a bunch of the four-stroke groups on Facebook saying that WKA was going to be coming out with a four-stroke series, which they haven't had since the Gold Cup series got shut down almost a decade ago to this point. I was talking with one of our sponsors on the show, Precision Performance Karting's John Seglem, to kind of get a little bit of the lowdown on that. And really, there wasn't much talked about at the Maxxis event. They were being respectful, just were saying that they were going to be done. And obviously, this has been some internal industry talks with probably Mike Tetro and then the Maxxis guys with Buddy Long and all them. But it'll be a lot more places for the four-stroke guys to race, which we've talked for a while. They never really had the same level of series competition that we've had on the major national scale with two-stroke stuff from Rock to Miami to Rotax. Now there's going to be a lot more choices for them because next year, if you look at where they're going to Charlotte, they're going to Barnesville, and they're going to Jacksonville. So in terms of the Southeast, that'll go right after the CKNA South schedule ends, which would give them already like 8 traveling events. Then if you count the Sunshine State Karting Challenge Series, which has 3 to 4 races in Florida alone, and then all the club stuff, there's going to be a lot of 4-cycle races, and it kind of has a little bit of a different crowd, but it was just interesting. I thought it was some new news on what has been kind of a slower week since the racing is starting to shut down for the year. Obviously, the big change for them is if they're going to WKA, they're going to go to Vega Tires. And it's good for those little tracks, especially for Barnesville and Jacksonville. They don't see a whole lot of big racing. We thought for a minute, we joked about it a lot, that Jacksonville might end up getting the big SKUSA Winter Series dates. Obviously, they did not. They ended up going to Homestead. I'm sure they were especially excited that Homestead announced that internally they were already planning to continue to build that track out, and that track's been the most popular Florida track by far over the last 2 seasons. So going back to SuperNats, though, guys, Braden and Ryan, you guys are going to be racing on it, so let's talk the layout here. Braden, I already kind of know your thoughts, so I'm going to have you kick things off. Your thoughts on them going to the same layout here with a little bit of a change this year.
Yeah, I think it's pretty disappointing. Considering they have really all the room in the world to work with, and to do the exact same track again, it's disappointing for me. But I think there might be something logistically with the barriers and having everything come together last second that they might not just have been able to do anything really that different. But I think I would have liked to see something more different, considering that this might be the only year that we have this much space for the SuperNats track. So, but I mean, if you look at the track, I mean, it's got good passing zones. Chicanes are a little bit redundant in my opinion, but looks it doesn't look terrible. I just would have liked to see them do something different, to be honest.
And then Ryan, switching over to you. I mean, you've run this layout as much as Braden has, being in the last few SuperNats and X30. It does look like maybe it'll be a little bit tighter, but obviously the thing with the barrier tracks is they can be changed by the barriers just being slightly different. They come out with a general layout, and then when it actually comes into effect, that track races a little bit different by moving the barriers 10 feet one way or 10 feet the other.
Yeah, it does. And honestly, I think the track surface plays a lot into it as well. At least we've never run a race on this surface, so we don't really know how bumpy it is. That really changes how the track performs and where the passing zones actually are. But as far as the layout goes, like, I'm not disappointed with this layout. I liked it before. I think it races well. It's not like my favorite layout. I like the races we ran up to Westgate. I like those layouts a lot. But I mean, honestly, for like the time crunch that they're in and like all the stuff going around it, it's like, they have a track that works. Just keep it. Let's get going and make sure this race happens. Like, let's not add something else to it. Like, I prefer this layout over some of the other layouts we've run. So like, it races well. It's good. Let's just, go after it.
And Greg, on to you. You've actually got a decent pit spot here this week. You're not right in between the scale and the grid area, but you got yourself a big team. You got yourself a big layout. You've been at the SuperNats for years and years and years, getting inducted into the SKUSA Hall of Fame. What do you think about this whole event? Because we haven't got the chance to have you on the show, but how crazy has it been for you, and how excited are you to finally at least get on track?
That's good. I mean, at the end of the day, like Ryan said, I mean, we could be not racing at all this year with everything that Tom had to go through. So track situation, we're really good at that track, and our product works really nice there. So it's, I think we'll be surprised with the asphalt. And when we raced it, mid 2000s with stars, it was really good. So overall, I think it's going to be a good event. I mean, it looks like the paddock's full. I'm hearing 550 entries. Pro Shifters sold out at 50. I think X30 sold out almost. Same thing with K100. I mean, it's going to be a pretty stout field all the way around. And quite honestly, that's why I go racing. I don't go racing to, sugarcoat things. I go challenge myself. So as a team. So.
Jason, I mean, you deal with shifter racers all the time. I mean, how amped up are you to see shifters get on track and have a full field here, especially with all the KZs?
Actually, I won't be down there.
Really?
Nope. Yeah, I haven't been at Swedetech for over a year. Rainey flew me in for the Vortex Rock stuff a couple weeks ago, just to kind of help him out those first few days. But yeah, it's been over a year since I've been with Swedetech.
Gotcha. Well, we'll give you a whole lot more time, obviously, to talk about what you've been doing in karting. Again, this is a big reason why I wanted to have you on, wanted to have Eric on, because I've known about both you guys. I'm big fans of what you guys are doing. Obviously, anyone that's a big advocate for karting is something that we're super passionate and want to give you guys as much of a platform as we can to talk about. And it's important to talk about all the other regions as well. Eric, I know you've been to SuperNats a number of times as well. I'll give you the chance to kind of give your thoughts because we've given everyone else their thoughts. You've seen this layout race too, right? Were you in person at the 2019 SuperNats as well?
Oh, sorry, I had myself muted.
There we go.
I was at the 2019 one, yeah, and the layout was very, very similar to this. I like what Greg said about the surface being a little bit different. In the Las Vegas parking lot versus over at the casino. I think that might be more of a factor than people are anticipating. Well, I definitely understand what Braden's saying about, it would be nice to stretch out and really come up with something crazy and new. From an event management standpoint, I can sympathize with everything being last minute, going back to something that they know, that they've measured, that they've done, and they know that they're going to have the proper amount of barriers in the allocation. And the year that I was there, it was very, very similar to this layout, and I thought it raced really well. Granted, I'm not one of these people that's been to 20 SuperNats, so I may not be the best reference point, but I don't think it's going to be a bad layout, and I think it's going to put on a great show for everyone that's there and for the racers.
Right. And again, building off what Greg said, there's a lot of racers, 550 to look at where we were going to be going into this event, where SCUSA thought that they were going to be put in such a box that the classes are going to be capped. We're going to be looking at maybe, optimistically 400 people they could fit in there. To be at 550, I think that's got to be one of the bigger ones on record. I mean, Greg, you might remember more than I am. I can't remember them being higher than 520, 530.
I think in 17, 18, they were a bit over 500. 550 is big. I mean, that's just a big number in the United States, period. Not on dirt. So hopefully it's not 24-hour days. I mean, it's going to be rough, to be honest with you.
SuperNats.
Yeah.
They're long
and that's
days.
another. Yeah. Well, again, the other thing too, which we covered a little bit when they came out with the initial timeline, and it looks like it's still going to be the same, is that they're going to have 8 a.m. to 5 days, and we're not going to be
They
racing
moved it
tonight.
forward.
They
They
moved it forward
half an hour.
We're running even earlier, so we're 7:30 to 5 now.
No, 8:30 to 5:30 probably.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, but still not planning on going at night. They're not planning on having lights though, right? So if we end up with red flags, is there lights
They
to
have to
run
have
late?
There's no way you're going to get a SuperNats in without lights.
Yeah.
Impossible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it is later in the year by a couple of weeks than it ever has been, so it's going to be getting dark even earlier.
It gets dark.
Plus,
here. It gets dark
I mean,
right now.
you have to. I feel like you have to weigh how much you want to race in the dark versus how much you want to race in the freezing.
At 5:15, it's pitch black here.
Yeah, really. Gotcha. Well, we'll find all that stuff out here next week. We're going to take a short commercial break, everybody. When we do come back, we want to talk and shift gears from everything that we're looking on the national scene to talk a little bit more about the stuff Jason's doing to help grow stuff out in Cali. And, of course, Greg as well, who's been entrenched in California karting for a long, long time. And, of course, Eric to give us the update on what Colorado should be expecting going into 2022 and what their status has been previously. So stick with us here. KC Happy Hour will roll on when we come back after the break. KC Happy Hour is presented by Precision Performance Karting. PPK is the exclusive South Florida dealer for Coyote Motorsports kart racing chassis and Coyote's newest distributor. However, owner John Seglem and Coyote Motorsports' relationship spans across numerous decades in the sport, meaning that you've got years of winning expertise at your service. PPK offers trackside support at all of the CKNA South Division events, the CKNA majors, such as the Spring Nationals and the Grand Nationals, the Sunshine State Karting Challenge, and a number of club races in the Southeast. PPK also has an impressive driver roster at these events, racking up multiple wins and podiums in 2021 with longtime Coyote Motorsports driver Chris Carroll and KC Happy Hour's own Paulie Massimino and Brandon Jarsakrak. If you're looking to get on the same race-winning equipment as these drivers, from the Coyote Motorsports chassis to the Odenthal motor mounts and Greyhound racing seats, Precision Performance Karting has you covered. Check out Precision Performance Karting on Facebook and Instagram, or email them at ppkartingfl@gmail.com. There's a new engine program on the block that's already begun winning races. Speed Lab Racing Engines has already racked up wins in X30 classes at the U.S. Pro Kart Series and Rock GP classes at the most recent Rock Vegas event. Headed up by names you can trust, such as longtime engine builder Mario Lafredo and industry veteran Mike Speed, Speed Lab Racing Engines has quickly become the engine of choice for a number of top teams in the sport, most recently servicing the entire Rullison Performance Group and Speed Concepts Racing operations at Rock Vegas, and also servicing the likes of JC Karting and Mike Doty Racing. It won't be long before this engine program gets a wait list, with his resume already filling up with wins, so make sure to reach out and get your tune-up by emailing them at speedlabracinengines@gmail.com. All right, welcome back, everybody, here to KC Happy Hour, episode number 19. We've got a couple special guests here with us, and one of them I especially wanted to make sure that we got him on the show. When the first one we asked for this one, thinking West Coast is a guy that's got himself a platform that started building the West Coast, and that's Jason Berry with Norcal Karters. Jason, you're obviously repping here on the show tonight. But you've been at it with Norcal Karters for a little bit. You got your own podcast going as well to kind of update everyone on the weekly basis out there. You just did a big one with Cameron over at Sonoma to talk about the 2022 Sonoma Club Series, which is obviously the mainstay up in that region. But I really want to know kind of what inspired you to start it. What's the story been up to this point, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me on. It's kind of hard to say what started it. I was approached by a few people to do a kart shop. I was at Swedetech for, I don't know, at least 15 years. It was a while, and Rainey was happy to see me go. And it was I wanted to kind of leave my own imprint on karting. Not under Swedetech or years ago I was with KLS Racing. So I've always worked for somebody in the industry. We always did really well. But I kind of wanted to leave my own imprint, and I wanted it to do, local. And after looking at it, we have plenty of shops in the area. We have Leading Edge. Greg's on the show tonight. We have Cambrian go-karts out in Sacramento. There's Ron White. There's GFC. There's a lot of shops that are available. It's like, well, adding another shop to the platform doesn't grow karting. And so I started looking. It's like, well, I'll just start a website. I took over an old website, but I started promoting events more. It's like, okay, let's just start promoting the clubs and the events, and let's just take it from there. And then I like hearing myself talk. So the podcast was a natural fit. It's like, all right, I get to talk and record it, and everyone can listen to it forever. Yeah, let's do a podcast. And what kind of seemed to work for Norcal Karters was the weekly events, upcoming events. Do it once a week, try to knock them out, and then I try to fill it in with karting guests that bring value to Norcal Karters.
And so let's talk Norcal then to go on here with you, and then I'll have Greg pop in here in a little bit. I mean, what's the state of the sport been up there? Because California is obviously the birthplace of karting. There are a ton of go-kart tracks up and down the state. What's the region looked like over the last few years, and then what's it looking like going into the off season now?
Oh man, it's such a difficult question. I've kind of had my hand off the pulse of the national stuff since I left Swedetech, so it's kind of hard to know what the rest of the country is doing. But there's a few tracks that are doing really well. Prairie City, once they got over the COVID thing, that track was shut down because they're on state property. The state says, no, you're not doing anything because, COVID's going to kill everybody. So they shut down all the racing. But once they got the track open, Donald Durbin, worked his butt off. He ended up having to split his race weekends in a 4-stroke weekend and a 2-stroke weekend. And he's just working really hard at it. And so those that don't know, Prairie City is primarily, they're an IAMI track. So they run the Evenco tires, the IAMI engine packages on their 2-stroke weekend. And then they run the Briggs 206 platform on their 4-stroke weekend. And then on the other side of the state, you have Sonoma, which is a Vortex program. And the shifter stuff has been phenomenal up there. And Steve and we talked about last night. It's like, okay, well, what needs to be done to help foster the clutch kart classes, not just at Sonoma, but in my opinion, for all the Vortex stuff, because people look at Vortex and it's like, well, why do I need a Vortex if I have an IAMI? And it's something they definitely need to work on. But the shifter stuff has been pretty solid. Towards the end of the year, other classes started growing, and there's some good racing action up there. And a little east of us is Reno. Reno has a very strong club that they're just specifically in their little, I guess, pocket, if you will. And then in Central California, the CCKRA, Central California Kart Racing Association, they're unique because they're club racers and they travel. They don't really have one home track. They go to Prairie City. They have a temporary track, not Prairie City, Buttonwillow, Santa Maria, and Fresno. And that series has done really well. And I see those 4 tracks and series doing really well in 2022 because I personally know none of them have lifted their foot off the gas pedal as we roll into the winter.
Gotcha. And Greg, I mean, you've been around California karting for a long, long time. You know, you've seen ups, you've seen downs, you've seen peaks and troughs. And I know, you know, your focus is obviously SuperNats right now, but dialing that out of it. What's some of the bad stuff you've seen that's hopefully is going away, or what stuff that you think like that scene could use a little bit more of to continue that kind of growth? You know, what is there anything shops could do more, or series could do more, or club racers could do more? Because obviously it's tough with the motors, but you know, beyond that, is there room or potential that region could do better?
Life's pretty easy, right? If you accommodate everybody, you'll have a big program. And in my opinion, that's one of the biggest reasons why Sonoma hasn't been able to grow, is because they're a single engine program. I think Jason was a little bit off on Prairie City because on the tag stuff, they allow the rock stuff to run there too. So that makes it, you know, a little bit better for people that have that platform, want to race somewhere else. But he was right. I mean, the 4 clubs that he talked about, I mean, they're super inviting. They try to work with every customer, you know, and make it work for them. And they don't lift off the throttle. I mean, I've been saying it for a year now that once Donald puts his races together and as a single weekend format, he'll be at 180. He'll kill what even we did at the Grand Nationals. And people don't see that. But I mean, if you get 80 one weekend and 60 the other weekend, I mean, you're almost at the number. So the Sonoma thing boggles me because it's absolutely the most beautiful track, beautiful setting, beautiful everything. And they have a hard time getting over that 70 number that, you know, doesn't, for whatever reason. I think Jason's right about that, just because the 100cc stuff isn't, you know, or the tag stuff isn't, I guess, super popular in California as far as that platform goes. Switching to IAMI is not the answer. There has to be another way to do it. And I think with the right brainstorming with people, Steve can get it done because he's a super good promoter. I feel bad for him because he puts his heart and soul into it, and you know, people just don't come. And I'm part of the problem. I mean, you know, you start off and you just don't have, the customer doesn't have the reason to be there in 100cc form, even though it's great racing. It's, you know, you're only getting 6, 8, 10 in a class, and it costs you $800-900 a weekend to race there. It gets to the point where, you know, people just can't afford it in Northern California for some reason. So there's been a lot of weird stuff going on for about 15 years in Northern California that's really caused this the interest and the participation to shrink. And quite honestly, I don't think it's going to get any better anytime soon, except for the tracks that Jason was just talking about. Everybody else is wondering, and they want to argue, and you give them good examples of what other tracks in the nation are doing to grow, or you know, what classes they're adding or what they don't have. And it kind of boggles my mind, you know. I mean, if I want to go learn how to be a brain surgeon, I'm calling Dr. Duke Bajan and figure out how to do it because he's successful at it, right? And you talk to people that travel all over the United States and the world and see what other tracks are doing, but yeah, you don't listen to them at all. And you just you argue with them instead of trying to how do we do that? How do we get to that point? And that's a big problem in Northern California. It's like they do everything,
Well, let's
That's my
switch gears.
opinion. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's good. There's, it's important to speak openly, right? I think that's the big thing that we've had with this show and the stuff that we've tried to push with it is that, if we want to really grow the sport, we can't just sweep negativity under the rug. I mean, we don't want to trash people, but we need to be honest that, we got to talk about the problems that are there, stuff that, why aren't we growing? Why is it ego in the way? And 9 times out of 10, ego is a big deal, but there's other issues that kind of prevent growth too,
I don't think it's ego. I think everybody that's running the tracks are actually really nice people. They just don't have history. And when you don't have history, you don't know what happened before to where you can try to implement things that worked in the past. And, then they look at you when you're like, well, why don't you do this? Or why don't you do that? I came up with an algorithm 3 years ago when things were really struggling. And I'm like, hey guys, you don't have enough participation to run a club event. And you're trying to run 9 of them and you're getting 30 entries. I said, let's taper back a little bit and let's do 5 tracks in the valley and we'll do two races each track. And then we'll pick a track like maybe outside the valley and we'll do, the final event. And I ran the numbers for them and they couldn't believe that only running 3 races and getting 160 entries instead of 30, they would actually put 20 grand in their club's pocket at the end of the year after 3 races because they can't put anything in their pocket in 9 races with 30 people. And I was just like, it's numbers. Everything in life is numbers. Why do you think Walmart makes it and they're, the cheapest place to go buy toilet paper? I mean, they sell 1 million packs a week. I mean, it's just what it has, you get over the threshold of what it costs to do business and everything else is gravy. They don't want to listen. They don't want to change it from the good old boy club to, hey, every track I see in America that's absolutely killing it. Rental carts, race carts, racing. And those guys are selling 150, 200 go-karts a year.
Right.
Killing it. And it needs to turn into a corporate business. Otherwise you're going to lose your track.
If I can jump in for a second, that's one of the things that I don't understand about karting as a recreation compared to other stuff. And most of us know Josh Lane. And, when he stopped karting, he got a motorcycle. He's doing his trial bike runs. He's posting every 5 minutes about his motorcycle stuff. To me, Josh, he's kind of an anomaly because he's a racer. And no matter what it is going to be, he's going to race. Like that's his DNA. Yeah. And then you look at your friends that have boats, they have motocross bikes, they have jet skis, whatever it is, it's kind of a power sport recreation. You don't see their name on ESPN every weekend because they're racing. No, they go out to their local SVRA and they do a couple of hours and they just trail ride or do whatever. But in karting, it's you get into karting and it's like, oh, you need to go race. You need to go do this. You need to do that. And I feel like there's not a lot of focus on the recreational guy to get them to bring their friends into it. It's all about the race. Oh, we got to do this. Well, where's the next race? Or what about points and this? And it's like, okay, well, we're still going to be stuck with 30 to 70 drivers because nobody's bringing in that guy that wants to show up on a Thursday just to go pound laps in his 2001 Emic with the YZ 125 on it.
Good point.
Right. Well, that's I've seen that, Jason, only in like a few regions, and it's made it possible for shops to survive, and it's only been like out of necessity. So, I talk about Homestead a lot because I spent 3 years down there working at that racetrack, and that is by far the most active practice racetrack for undercarts I have ever seen in the U.S., rivaled only by the Italian tracks that normally see international races where you'll find 100 guys on a Tuesday. And the reason for that track being so popular with practice is you have a group of a majority of guys that will never see a race there. I mean, there's easily, especially now, when I left, we were, 50 to 70 driver passes on any given Saturday, whether there was a race the next weekend or not. And then on top of that, now they're doing even more and even more. It's just continue to steamroll. But it's because the shops down there are at the edge of the earth when it comes to location. So they can't even, obviously Greg, I mean, the reason why he's having to look at stuff out east and different logistical options is because of how far it is to drive from California to go to Midwest and East Coast races with a lot of the national stuff. It's equally as hard for the Miami guys, and that's their region. They can go to Florida races, but it's 12 hours top to bottom out of Florida. Well, it's 8 really, but it's 12 at least to get up to, at least to Atlanta. So when the track races go up to Indianapolis, go to Wisconsin, I mean, they can't go. So those shops had to find ways to make money outside of Florida Winter Tour, and that became tag rentals and shifter rentals and supporting recreational guys. And I mean, there are guys that I see tuning that have shops down there, and they just have their group of guys that they kind of service their carts for and store them just for recreation. But it's a huge revenue source. It's a lot easier to be stable because, especially from a mechanical side of points, you don't have to worry about tuning for that last half a second. That guy is just carrying that cart like runs, for sure. But it's only happened, I've seen, in pockets of the sport where it's needed to. And it's tough too, because if you don't have to do that, if you can go and do the racing stuff, obviously the racing from a shop, guy, it's the guy who loves racing normally. So it's a little bit sexier. And from a scalability point, I don't know if the margins could be there and at a good price point where you could have both, and you could have a guy you employ stay home on the weekend and run your rec guys or support your recreational guys at the practice at the home track while you took a team out there. I don't know if there's even enough room in the margins to have that. Greg, you're shaking your head. I'm sure you probably know as well.
Not in California.
Yeah. Because it's a chicken or the egg thing too. It's one thing when you got 20 guys coming and renting go-karts at 500 a day or 300 or 400 a day, but to get to that point, that takes a lot of investment and a lot of money for the first year that you'd probably burning through to build up.
I talked to most every shop out there, and there's some guys doing really well. Raleigh's one of them. He's right at the racetrack, right? I mean, he's killing it. Nash is doing really well. And they're doing exactly what you're talking about doing. I mean, they're on the racetrack 2-3 times a week testing or driver supporting or whatever they're doing. And it works for them. But they're also, 15 minutes away from a racetrack that is the only racetrack in the region that they race at. And I think that that's the big thing, is that you can, turn around and be like, okay, well, Cal Speed's really the only track they use down south anymore. And three different series are racing at it, so they can be there 3 weekends out of the month and then go do a national. And, they're killing it for 4 weeks, because of driver coaching and, driver testing and everything else. And for some reason in California, or Northern California anyway, we can't even get people to commit to 6 races. I mean, it's just, there's something going on that I can't put my finger on it. And I've tried for 2 years. I'm just like, I'm pulling my hair out trying to get even my best of customers, the best of racers that do almost everything with me, that they'll miss like 3 out of the 6 pro kart races, and you start off with 11 and then you show up with 3. I mean, you're not making any money. You're shoving money into a trash can. So just it's pretty difficult to build a business in California right now. I mean, Phil Giebler doesn't have an employee. Nash has guys that come in, but I don't know, maybe he has one full-time guy. To me, it's just 30 years of doing this, which I'm, being successful doing it. It's just not healthy. There's just something going on that I cannot figure out. We only have really 2 series in Northern California, and that's, 3, I guess. I don't really consider Sonoma Northern California. They're kind of the Bay Area, and they get that Bay Area crowd, not too many people from the Valley. But then you have Prairie City and KPX, and KPX struggles to get 70, and they're really the only traveling regional series there is, and they should, in my opinion, they should be 120 to 150 pretty easily, and they're not, and can't figure out why. We've all talked about it, tried to brainstorm at a round table, trying to figure out what we need to do, and it just doesn't happen. But then you look at Tom Kuchar with Pro Kart, and he's in the same pocket, 80 to 90 entries, and that used to be 160 easy. So I just think, and I've said it for years, is that, we're so busy in California, and I see it when I spend, a lot of time in North Carolina, people are on a different time crunch there than they are here. And, you know, you get up at 7 a.m. here and you hustle until 7, 8 at night and you do it all over again. That doesn't leave you a lot of room. And I think a lot of it has to do with cost of living and, you know, what people are, you know, forced to deal with in California. But it also looks like, and I mean, if you're able to make enough money to have a recreational vehicle here that takes a fair amount of time, and you know, Josh Lane can go out on his motorcycle and he can run that thing, you know, 10, 15, 20 hours straight on one rear tire, and then 20 hours in a go-kart. I mean, you have a $2,000 tire bill. You know, so
Yeah.
There's a lot of factors that play into.
Yeah.
Sport, you know?
Well, for sure. Well, Eric, I want to switch over and touch you here before we go to our final commercial break of the night and talk Colorado, because you guys, I mean, no different than NorCal has seen some kind of shifts come through. We go back, you know, to 2010 or roughly around that area was SCUSA Pro Tour came to Grand Junction. You know, that was a major event, obviously, out then. That was back when the Pro Tour was still a little bit more Western based. Since then, you know, and then since then, Centennial obviously had the Rotax Pan Am, and I think it had Grands in the mid 2000s, but it had a Pan Am, maybe it was like 2011. And then that track is now gone, unfortunately, which was a huge loss for, you know, the state. And I think maybe everyone thought it was going to be a little bit bigger, but I don't know how big of an impact that was for that region and losing a big track like that. Can you tell us a little bit about, you know, what Colorado's been like the last few years? And obviously, you know, losing Centennial is the big news that everybody knows about, but what's it been like?
Well, honestly, actually a lot of positive, in my opinion, at least the last few years. You know, full disclosure, I came out here for school to see you, and so a lot of what I know about the history from, you know, even the early 2000s or even early 2010s, you know, everything kind of pre-2016 is a little before me, but Colorado, like a lot of karting regions, has gone through cycles, right? Boom and bust periods. I think right now, like a lot of the karting industry, we're seeing a resurgence. COVID has kind of woken up a lot of people in a strange way to outdoor activities. I would say in the last year or so, we've seen pretty significant growth in Colorado. But I think it's built on the shoulders of a lot of concerted work and effort by people in the region to focus on some basics and getting those right. So, you know, in addition to running point karting and other things, I've been, even before that, really hands-on with the Colorado Karting Tour on the administrative side. And so I've learned a lot about running a kart racing series, volunteering for one, and viewing it from that perspective, not just as a competitor. And I think a big reason that Colorado karting has grown, and granted we're a smaller market by far compared to California, has been focusing on basics, you know, making sure that we're communicating with our members, that we're listening to racers, and just trying to do those sorts of things to take the largest kart series in the state, really from kind of a local club sort of thing to truly kind of a regional kart racing series at this point.
Gotcha. Well, we're right at that point where we need to take that commercial break. When we come back, we're going to have Q&A for our special guests. We're also going to say goodbye to Ryan and Braden, let them get ready for SuperNats here next week. But Eric, I do want to talk to you more about stuff you've got. So before we get to our Q&A, which you guys can continue to submit right as we get ready to go to break or into break, we're going to talk a little bit more Colorado stuff and build on that. Again, guys, stick with us. KC Happy Hour rolls on. We'll be back right after this.
I'm Billy Vincent, owner of MPG Motorsports. What we do at MPG is we try to keep it a nice, fun family atmosphere, try to combine sort of the bigger things and of the bigger teams and the professionalism down with sort of some of the fun, sort of family-oriented atmosphere. We try to not only develop drivers, but also the parents and the families for just in knowledge in general in motorsports. It all starts in karting. What we try to do is try to help the drivers, the moms, the dads understand the sport of motorsports in general, not just karting, but what it takes to get all the way up through. Whether you end up wanting to be a driver or a mechanic or an engineer, you know, we can help you with that, and that's what we're here for. If you're interested in joining us at MPG, our home base is at Whiteland Raceway Park in Indianapolis, and you can contact us at info@willpowerkart.com, and one of our great people will reach out to you, and we'll try to put the best program together.
As the Western importer of the Praga and Formula K chassis brands, Leading Edge Motorsports is a high-performance kart shop and race team with a simple mission: teach others the joy of high-performance driving, supply our customers with the highest quality products and services, and win races. With our remarkable racing inventory, expert services, and top-ranked professional race team to back it up, we'll help get your new kart racing package up and running fast. From arrive and drive service to kart preparation and driver coaching, to the parts you need to get back on the racetrack, Leading Edge Motorsports is the industry answer.
Kart Store USA is a kart parts supplier that racers and retailers can count on when they need reliable advice and service. We focus on servicing all racers with honesty and pride while maintaining customer satisfaction. We carry a full stock of Kart Republic and Tony Kart chassis, as well as IAMI and Vortex Rock engines. We've also got a host of other parts available and in stock, such as products from Rev Performance Materials, Jecco Racing Seats, and more. We have a 100% satisfaction guarantee, and on top of that, if your order exceeds $200, shipping is on us. Check out all we have to offer today by visiting us online at kartstore-usa.com. All right, welcome back, everybody. If you're just tuning in here, we've got a couple special guests with us off the regular cast crew. I've been talking with Eric Gunderson, Jason Barry, and, of course, Greg Bell from Northern California Karting and to Colorado Karting. And, Eric, you were just catching us up to speed on some of the stuff you've done. And I really want to highlight some of the stuff you've done over the last few years. You're obviously really involved, especially at different points of helping James McMahon with Kart Pulse. You guys even had a live show of your own for a little bit that you did. But as well, with the Colorado Karter, just like Norcal Karters, I mean, that's a site that kind of promotes the sport. So can you give us a bit of the lowdown and like what would be a quick synopsis on that? And then obviously what inspired you to do that as well?
Yeah, I mean, unlike Jason's site, I kind of inherited the Colorado Karter. So that was a site that was put around and developed in the early 2000s that I recognized. It went through a little bit of ownership change, and I kind of acquired it as part of some of the things that I do. In 2017, I worked to revamp the site, make it a little more modern, a little bit easier. And I'll be honest, lately I haven't worked on it as much. I decided to start a business on top of that. But the Colorado Karter is a great community website. Right now, mostly of the activity is around the classifieds and forums, but it's a gathering point for people and business people, industry people within Colorado to really focus on issues as well as communication and just the community here in Colorado. There's a lot that I would love to do with it. Honestly, it's just been kind of a challenge with time with other things I'm doing. But that's the Colorado Karter in a nutshell.
Gotcha. And I wanted to talk to you a little. So, like, what do we see club turnout wise? Obviously, the Colorado Karting Tour is starting to bud and grow each year. It's had a few years in. It had that big KA turnout at Grand Junction. What was it, a year or two ago? Like 40. But then since then, just kind of like steady, methodical growth with it. What are the club sizes and what tracks have good clubs? There's clubs that are starting to grow, and what's that look like?
So in the Colorado region, by far the biggest one is CKT, the Colorado Karting Tour. We see, we finally hit the century mark and really have consistently grown through that in the last year and a half. And that's been a long time coming. There are some other regional kart racing series. There's the Rock the Rockies series, which is at one particular track kind of near Colorado Springs. And then there's a local series at a track called Action Karting, which is near the Bandimere Speedway facility. And then I think Grand Junction has at times tried to get a kart series off the ground, but it really hasn't gone anywhere. So, kind of to reiterate, I mean, the Denver metro market and really Colorado in general, it just has a smaller population than California. So when you look at our participation and the amount of entries that we have versus the just general population pool that we're pulling from, I think we're doing pretty well. You mentioned that kart race where we had quite a few out-of-state racers. CKT hosted an event that was kind of one of the first after a pretty hard shutdown with COVID. And so we had a great turnout there. But the series as a whole really has grown and stood on its own 2 feet the last handful of years, just steadily chipping away at it.
Gotcha. Well, we do have our first of the viewer questions for you that I wanted to touch on. This was from our good buddy Justin and supporter of the show. First of all, Justin, thanks again for the donation. That'll always put you first up to get your question read off. But this one's straight for you, Eric. He's trying to race in all 50 states. So what Colorado track, number one, unbiased opinion, does he need to race at to check that state off?
I would definitely say Grand Junction Motor Speedway right now. Centennial was open. A lot of people really liked that facility. I've driven at all the different tracks. Personally, I really like Grand Junction. The facilities, are good too. And it's scenic. It's a nice town. There's lots to do outside of just side of that. There's some national parks nearby, and the small town of Grand Junction is not too bad. So I would say that definitely would be the one I would try to put on my calendar. We also have a great temporary circuit that we set up at Pikes Peak International Raceway each year, and people really like that track. So either one would be great.
That's pretty cool. So where do you guys do it at Pikes Peak? Do you do it like SuperNat style in the parking lot, or do you guys use some of the infield and go up on the oval?
We do go up on the oval. We're a little careful with that just because there's a big wall there, but we will use part of the NASCAR track, the oval track, as well as the infield road course. We change the format, in the layout just a little bit each year, but generally that's what we do.
Gotcha. Well, we had a couple other questions I wanted to kind of field on through. First of all, this one's for me from Neo Gothic Racing, and he said, Xander, when are we going to see some ICP coverage, which is, of course, that big Northwest regional, not Northeast. Seriously, a couple of us here in Montana are looking at them as the closest regional we have. Share the love, man. This is part of the stuff that we want to get out to, and part of more that we want to do with Happy Hour that I really wanted to touch on. And I appreciate you reaching out and sending the comment and question in. It's a good question. I try to follow as much as I can. Anyone that can tell you, even before we started doing this or before I got to start racing or announcing more nationals, I was about as big of a nerd as I could be on the sport and read about everything there was. So I follow the ICP Cup. It's awesome that the numbers there are continuing to bud. And shout out to you guys in Montana, because just like Eric, you guys, I think the big thing is keeping things in perspective. If you can try and stay positive, hopefully you guys are, it sounds like you are, about a state with a lower population, but still pulling good numbers. I'd love to get up there to that region, and we're working on some stuff next year that is hopefully going to let me touch a few more regional series. Obviously we have our live stream program that's looking at right now. We're sitting at about 23 events with a couple more to announce. I'm hoping we can get that number up to 29 if one deal ends up going through, but that still leaves a lot of open weekends in the year that I'm going to try and do some kind of reach out videos where we go to tracks that we don't normally get to go to or aren't part of the normal, what we consider national and everything traveling scene that guys like Greg and all the major teams try to hit. Working on it. Would love to get out there. And shout out to you guys for tuning in. I really appreciate it. And thanks for the comment on that. And we're going to go on through on down here on a few more ones that we had. And these were some of these were just reactions a little bit as well about some of us coming on. First was from Anthony Giannon, who was saying, man, he picked the right night to tune in with all the Colorado talk. So Eric, again, great representative for the show. We appreciate you bringing some more guys on. And obviously giving some value for them. It's cool to talk about. And a few more guys were talking about, some of the same issues that every club ends up running into, which was just how difficult, a single engine manufacturer, Paul Montepoli, is a guy up in the Northeast. So it makes, in general, obviously, Greg, you mentioned it, Prairie City, they're able to allow the rocks into the tag classes and the 100cc stuff, the 100cc stuff, if you can. The motors are identical, so if you don't have a locked-in deal like Sonoma does, running that together makes sense. Jason, you got off the phone with Steve. I know that was the big news and the big drama years ago when the SCUSA Pro Tour took Sonoma off the schedule and there was the big contract that got signed and everything. Where do they stand with all that? Are they still locked in, but it's just having to get creative with Rock?
As far as with the schedule, or as far as with the engine platforms?
Platforms.
I think Steve highlighted it on the podcast last night. He's still going back and forth with Vortex regarding allowing the IAMEs, and specifically the KA100 for the Rock Sonoma stuff. A lot of Steve's racers have expressed interest, like, hey, we want to come back to your series, but we want to run the KA. That's what we own. You allowed it for the first, year and a half. So he's still waiting for a final answer from Vortex, Rock Cup USA rather, if he can do a mixed KA 100 class.
Gotcha.
And then did you have two questions of that, or just that was it?
Just that one, just on the
Okay.
platform. Yeah. I mean, I'm not so concerned about what national dates or stuff like that, but
yeah, and
I was
I
just
kind
curious.
of agree. I mean,
Yeah.
you just look at the numbers when they have the KA 100, when they had it in the senior class specifically, and the drivers had to run a VLR, or the participation wasn't as strong when they were forced to run the VLR. And it's
kind of tough when California and Northern, anyways. Man, Southern is predominantly KA.
It's KA.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, I think the shifter stuff in Vortex is so strong because there were enough people looking for an alternative away from SCUSA on the shifter package. They were getting away from the Honda stuff. The 175 didn't roll out very nice. They were looking for an option.
That's what it was.
Yeah, but then you look at the VLR. I didn't hear any complaints on a large scale for people trying to get away from a KA 100. So they owned a KA 100. So there was no need to replace the KA.
Well, yeah. There's no reason to have two go-karts or switch engines to go run 1 weekend a month at a different track.
Correct.
Right.
And that's what the struggle is at Sonoma for the most part. Their shifter fields can be big. I mean, at the end of the year, it wasn't as big as. I was kind of shocked at the numbers actually not being as big as I thought they should be.
Yeah, I think the last weekend, I think part of it is it's so close to Rock Cup.
Oh yeah,
the weather was up in the air,
and the weather was a big deal. And even the weekend before that, I think was Andy's race, and I thought they had an amazing turnout for that series.
They've done a great job doing the co-op promotion between Andy's series and Steve's series. Those have been a lot of fun.
And then I was excited to see the junior stuff in the VLR. I mean, it was 18 cars on the track, which was really nice. The one race that we went up to and ran that we had time to do.
Yep.
That's my biggest problem. Everybody looks at me and is like, how many guys do you have working for you? I'm like, one. Me. And how do you get it all done? We hustle. I mean, it's not a glorious shop owner situation. It's what we're dealing with in today's time. So,
right.
Well,
now I'm prepping because I have to. So before big races, I fly them in and we do the work and we load up and we roll.
And that's what it's a little soapbox moment for me. But when I was younger and first got into karting, if a kart shop called me and said, "Hey, can you help me out for a couple hours a week or whatever?" I would have been in my car and in that shop in a heartbeat. Nowadays, we have all this technology. We have all this way of outreach.
Yeah.
And I have a local kid, Preston Lambert. He's about the only one that will call me and say, "Hey, you got work." I've offered work to other kids that are local to me, and it's like, no,
they don't want it.
It doesn't sound like fun. It's like, no, it's called work. It's not fun. It's crappy. And I'm going to give you the crappiest job too. I have Preston working on some, shitty, I hope my customer's not listening, shitty 2001 Burrell that, got bent in half. It's never had a rag on it to clean it. I go, Preston, that's your job for today. Figure out how to get the rear axle out. It had 9 inches of grease and chain lube on the rear bumper as a pig. But, that's how these kids learn. It's like you do that, show me you can pull an axle out, I'll give you something better.
Yeah.
And it just amazed me. Like Greg goes, "Oh, I don't have help." It's like, you have drivers, and it's like, come in on a Saturday.
I just told Danny today, I'm like, listen, 2022, you're flying in before we go to races because I can't. I just can't. I mean, prep on a pro car is 10 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just slam it together and go. I mean, it's 10 hours worth of work to go be competitive, and he flies in and does his job well. I'm just like, I just need to bring you in, pay you a little bit, and help.
Yeah. So if you're out there listening, how do you get in a kart shop? Call Greg or call your local kart shop. Say, "Hey, can I come help you?"
Give me a call. You're too far away, but
yeah,
you're not going to ride your bicycle to Lodi.
No,
I can always use help.
No, that was big. That was something I actually talked a lot with Ryan about when we did a one-on-one podcast earlier this year. Was like that was how I kind of was able to work off some of my bills early on.
Yeah.
In the little bit of racing I was able to do was just going down and driving. In the shop that I was near was like an hour away. And I'm some of my best memories and what helped me be able to learn to work on go-karts was driving down there and being there till late and then going to Waffle House at 1 a.m. because they just love to work late at that shop. But that's what we did. And so I got to learn to work on a lot of go-karts. And then on top of that, socialize at the track, and then all of a sudden was able to bring them customers. And then then you can really leverage some stuff when you're not only helping take the workload off for free, but really bringing them some value. I don't want to go too
about that. Some of my best kid friends, it sucks I'm older, but Colin Kazak can just stop by yesterday. We talked for an hour and a half about, he went to work for me at 10 years old in my shop.
Yeah.
Sweet. And then for 6 years while he was going through college and high school, every summer he was at the shop busting ass. He was, that was him and about 3 or 4 kids in that era were at my shop every summer. And that's how I got through the summer load. It's like, they were there and they made good money. I pay everybody $20 an hour to work. You have to work, you have to pay people to make them stay around. So, and I don't know if $20 an hour is good anymore, which sucks because it's still a lot of money. But you can go flip burgers for $20 an hour. It's kind of sad. Gets nothing.
Well, going back to what we were talking about with having to go back and forth for NorCal. NorCal has Miami and Rock. Two for two of the bigger clubs, right? One heavily on one heavily on the other. The one Prairie City is obviously not tied in as deep as Sonoma is, but Eric, out in Colorado, you guys, you mentioned the Rock the Rocky series, which is trying to get some ground. The Rotax Trophy Series went there. Did it have a race there this year? I know they went there last year, right? To have the Trophy Series West.
They did.
Yeah. So you've got in Colorado Karting Tour, what's the class lineup? Because you guys have all three kind of nipping in the region just lightly between Rotax, Rock, and Miami.
Colorado is kind of interesting and in my opinion, good because we have a very diverse class lineup and we run all these different engines, and wouldn't you know it, everyone still races go-karts and everyone still mostly gets along. So it is a little varied, and some of it is based on just kind of inertia from previous years. So Rotex still has a fairly good foothold here, which I know is relatively rare, but especially in the junior Rotax and the mini and micro, you still see a decent turnout, and Greg at Forward Direction does a great job kind of keeping that going. Briggs 206, big backbone of CKT and really of the region. Obviously, with Rock the Rockies, they're rock-centric. I would say, there's some things they're doing really well and other things they can work on. So we don't see as much there. The Rotax Trophy West race did come here, and it for that series, it was a good turnout. I think that they've got some more things to work on if they want to keep working on that. Miami in the 100cc senior is growing, but it's taking some time. I think the general customer profile here in Colorado, they can only do so many events. And I think that it's important for us to maintain and us to grow in Colorado is to really recognize that and not oversaturate the market with too many events and too many things going on. Kind of to what Greg and Jason talked about. If you have 3 different races going on the same day, well, you're going to have a really low turnout at each one, right? Because people are forced to choose. So I hope that that's something that we can continue to kind of monitor and be conscious of. Because, I think we have a pretty good class lineup right now. Honestly, I think we have probably maybe 1 or 2 too many classes right now that we could pare down.
Right. Well, I think that about kind of wraps us up for a bit on the night. It was cool to have you on, Eric, and have you talk about it. I appreciate it. Jason and Greg, likewise to you guys. Greg, I know you got a lot more work to get to later tonight as well. But it's cool that you guys were able to get over with the Colorado Karting Tour over 100. I think everything with the sports, at least on a general uptick after what's kind of been a lull period. Obviously, everybody coming out of COVID has a lot of money to spend. It's been keeping Greg busy in the shop. But in all seriousness, I think it's been good here. Frankie, I'll go ahead and answer you on this one. Asking about live streaming SCUSA Pro Kart California. I'm open to any series that would want to have us do it. It obviously costs a little bit, and it's a partnership between us and the series, and being able to make sure that we have ad partners lined up as well, and that's still all kind of forming. But I'd happily do stuff for SCUSA Pro Kart or for any regional series where we can make stuff work, because I'm flexible. But we're gonna have a couple weekends next year where we're actually gonna be doing I think 2 live streams on the same weekend, because I think there's a Route 66 and Sprint Series and Texas Sprint Series weekend. They're on the same weekend, and then there's also a weekend where Stars is going to be on the same weekend as Texas Sprint Series. So there's going to be quite a few double weekends that we're going to have, and I'd be open to having double or triple weekends and anything for more coverage from all you guys. So if you want your series to be live streamed, it's not just me that you got to talk to do it. I'm all in for whoever can work with us. But there's a little cost to it to make it all work. So talk to your promoters, see what they can do. And if you guys want to send them our way, we'll do it. And this is actually another question for it as well, Justin. No, I'm not cloning myself, but we have some really, really talented announcers that we've got in the arsenal. We've actually got a really cool team I'm excited about. We'll be announcing a lot more of that as we come. And the last thing I did want to announce as well, we've got some really cool videos coming in the pipeline. A Rock Vegas episode is supposed to kick it off, which also is going to be followed up by a full all access episode. We already did one with Greg and Leading Edge at SuperNats. We're going to do one that's already done that gives you the whole weekend. And spoiler alert, a big win at the end. That's coming out in the next couple days. The Rock Vegas video is supposed to be out. We had initially some issues with YouTube on the upload, and that's kind of put us in a holding pattern. I'm really working on trying to make sure that one gets released and gets out there. Just be patient with me. I'm really sorry about that. Was really excited to get that one out because there was some really good racing. There was that crazy Rock Senior finish. There was some good racing across the board in the classes. We're going to have it similar to CKNA Grand style, where every class gets a little bit of coverage. And then obviously our 2 headline classes, Rock Senior and especially the main headline in the afternoon, Rock Shifter, gets heavy coverage. So that's all coming in the next few days. Really excited about all that stuff and really excited about SuperNats. Again, Greg, Jason, Eric, thank you guys so much for joining.
Thank you for having us on.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And yeah, likewise. And we're going to get to see, Greg will be hanging out with in Vegas. So if you guys are out in Vegas, make sure to say thanks in person to Greg. Eric, if you can find him running around, because he'll be busy double manning 2 go-karts. Try and get to them.
It's gonna be bad.
They'll both be really busy. But if you guys do see them, make sure to say
I'll be
thanks for
sitting
being
by
on
my
the show.
fire pit.
Yeah, Jason will be watching, laughing at all of us working out in Vegas and freezing at night. But yeah, thanks again, guys. Thanks again to everybody for tuning in. We'll be back next week. I don't know how we're gonna do it. We're gonna find a way how. But we'll get you guys a whole lot of coverage from SuperNats. Thanks again for tuning in for KC Happy Hour.